"You're still pathetic, Mia." The words sliced through my mind like a shard of glass. I froze, mid-diaper change, my fingers coated in baby powder and guilt. My daughter, my barely 1-month-old daughter, was staring at me with eyes far too knowing, far too sharp. Not innocent baby blue, steel gray, cold, familiar. For a second, the room tilted, the scent of wipes and milk faded. All I could hear was my own heart pounding, screaming no, no, no. But her gaze pinned me like it used to when, no, no. This is ridiculous. I haven't slept in 2 nights, I've been alone too long. This is sleep deprivation, trauma flashbacks, postpartum madness. I forced a laugh, shaky and too high. Okay, Mia, deep breath. The baby didn't talk. Babies don't talk, Hope cooed, her lips parting just enough to let out the tiniest sigh, but the voice hadn't come from her mouth. It had come from inside me. From inside my head, the way you remember something so vividly it becomes sound. You're still pathetic, Mia. The exact tone. The exact contempt. Courtney. The name hit like a slap. My stepmother's voice. My tormentor, my ghost. The woman who raised me and broke me in equal measure. She died 10 years ago, and now her eyes were staring at me from my daughter's face. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the diaper bin. My vision blurred, sweat gathering at my temples. Hope let out a sleepy grunt and curled her tiny fingers into fists. No, not possible, not her. It can't be her. I sat down on the floor beside the changing table, pressing my back to the wall, trying to catch my breath. My chest tightened, but I didn't cry, not yet. My body had learned a long time ago not to waste tears on confusion. I stared at her, at Hope. Her face had softened again. She looked normal, fragile, like any other newborn. Her tiny chest rising and falling. Her nose scrunching slightly, as if she'd forgotten whatever ancient hatred had just leaked out of her soul. Or mine. Maybe it was mine. Maybe the fear was bubbling up again, manifesting in hallucinations. I didn't even realize I was holding my phone until I heard it ringing. It was already dialing. Talia, of course. She picked up on the second ring. If you're calling to tell me your baby pooped for the 4th time today, I swear to God. She spoke, a pause. Who? Hope? Yes, no, not really. I mean, she didn't move her mouth, but I heard it. In my head. She called me pathetic. Like Courtney? Talia didn't laugh. She rarely did when I sounded serious. Instead, she said, "Do you want me to come over?" I nodded before I realized she couldn't see me. Please. By the time she arrived, Hope was asleep. Or pretending to be. I had no idea anymore. The apartment smelled like lavender wipes and cold tea. I hadn't eaten all day, and the only light came from the floor lamp in the corner, casting long shadows across unpacked boxes I'd meant to sort before the birth. Talia entered like a gust of normalcy, messy bun, oversized hoodie, iced coffee in one hand, and judgment in the other. "I brought caffeine and judgment," she said. "Which do you need first? Just be here." She flopped onto the couch, kicked off her shoes and patted the space beside her. I joined her, legs curled up, arms hugging a throw pillow that still smelled faintly of lemon detergent. "You really think she talked?" "I don't know what to think," I whispered. It was Courtney's voice. I haven't heard it in years, but I'd know it anywhere. "You've barely slept in a week." "I know. You haven't left the house in days." "I know." Talia took a long sip of coffee, then said softly, "Trauma rewires the brain, you know. Courtney did a number on you. This could just be your brain trying to process it." I wanted to agree, I really did. But I kept thinking about those eyes, the cold calculation, the exact tone, down to the clipped consonants, not the brain, her. "I swear she looked at me like I ruined her day," I said, like she couldn't believe I was raising her. "You are raising her," Talia said. "She's your baby, not Courtney. Courtney's dead." I stared toward the crib in the next room. A soft whimper came from the monitor. "Then why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Does it feel like she's back?" Talia didn't answer. Because sometimes silence is scarier than anything else. The next morning, Hope stared at me like I was an unsolved problem. Babies don't stare like that. Babies blink, flail, whimper, gurgle. They don't study you. They don't lean ever so slightly to one side to get a better angle, or copy your frown with precision so exact it feels like mockery. But Hope did. When I rubbed my temples from a headache, she mimicked the motion with her tiny fingers. When I sighed, her mouth shaped the same soundless exhale. When I stood in silence, she stilled too, as if listening, waiting. It wasn't just creepy, it was intentional. She wasn't mimicking me like a baby learning behavior. She was watching me, like Courtney used to, across the kitchen island, eyes scanning for weakness. I was holding Hope, my back to the sink, bouncing her gently while the kettle heated, when the doorbell rang. I didn't need to check the peephole. Only one person knocks like they're not sure they're welcome. I opened the door. There he was, Daniel. He gave me that same soft smile that had always disarmed me, the one I used to trust before everything fell apart. "Hey," he said, holding up a brown paper bag and a small stuffed elephant. "I brought food, and bribes." I blinked. "You brought Thai food and a toy. That's cheating." "Only slightly," he said, stepping inside. Hope stirred in my arms. "Oh wow," Daniel said, his voice going instinctively soft. She's gotten bigger. She's 1 month old, not 20. I know." Still, his eyes were on her face, his voice unsure. "She looks a lot like you." I didn't answer. I knew what he was really thinking. She doesn't look like me. Not one bit. And she didn't look like her biological father either, who'd vanished before the ultrasound even printed. But she did look like someone. Someone who was supposed to be dead. Daniel followed me into the kitchen. The space was warm from the heating, the kettle hissing behind me. The baby swing sat idle in the corner like a tiny throne, and in it, Hope turned her head, slowly, and locked eyes with Daniel. He startled. "What?" I asked, watching him freeze. "She's just, I don't know, alert. She's always like that." "Newborns usually aren't that focused," he said carefully. "Especially not this early. I mean, maybe it's nothing, but do you think something's wrong with her?" My voice came out sharper than I meant. He raised his hands. No, I'm just saying it's unusual." Hope's tiny brows furrowed. Just for a second, a flicker of irritation. Daniel didn't see it, or maybe he didn't want to. We sat at the table. I served the takeout into bowls more for something to do than from hunger. Hope remained strangely quiet in the swing, her eyes darting between us like she was following the conversation. Daniel leaned back. "How are you, Mia? Really?" "Don't," I said quickly. "Don't do the concern voice." He smiled a little. "Fine. I'll do the friend voice instead." I looked down at my hands. "I'm tired." "That's expected. I'm scared." He looked up sharply. "Of what?" I hesitated. I didn't want to say it out loud. That I was afraid of my baby. That I thought she was possessed. That she had my stepmother's soul wearing her soft skin like a costume. I settled for, of getting it wrong. He nodded. "Every parent feels that, but not like this. Not when your infant daughter watches you like a predator." We talked a bit more, about work, about my maternity leave, about his new position at the hospital. I smiled where I needed to. I laughed at the safe parts, but the whole time Hope stared. At one point, Daniel bent forward, holding the stuffed elephant, and said, "Hey there, little one." Hope didn't giggle, didn't blink, just kept staring. He froze again. I saw it, that flicker of unease. But he covered it with a smile. "She's got strong eye contact. She always does." After he left, I sat on the couch in silence. Then Talia called. "Did he bring food?" she asked without hello. "Yeah. Did the baby act weird?" Define weird. "She didn't ask him to draft a new will, did she?" I snorted despite myself. "No." "But she did stare at him like she was ready to diagnose him." Talia exhaled. "Okay. Then listen. Let's put in a nanny cam." "What?" "Just for peace of mind," she said. "If you're wrong, great. If you're right, well, Then we both get a book deal. I rolled my eyes, but my heart beat faster. A camera. Proof. Or absolution. Either way. I needed to know. The camera caught it at 2:14 a.m. Talia had insisted on installing the nanny cam above the crib, just for sanity, she said, laughing too loudly as she set it up with a latte in one hand and a screwdriver in the other. I hadn't expected it to show anything. I was wrong. In the grainy night vision footage, my baby lay still in her bassinet. Her arms didn't flail, her lips didn't move, but her eyes were wide open, and her gaze was fixed on the ceiling like she was watching something I couldn't see. And then it happened. Clear as day, in the audio feed. Mia, not a coo, not a babble, a whisper, my name, said like a curse, said in Courtney's voice, same cadence, same clipped vowels. Same dead disgust. I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor. My knees buckled, and I slid down the wall, shaking. I pressed both hands to my mouth, trying to hold in the sob I could feel clawing its way up my throat. It wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't stress. It wasn't postpartum anything. It was her. She was back. My baby was Courtney. I didn't sleep. I didn't move from the hallway floor until the sun started bleeding into the curtains. The air felt thick, like grief, like guilt. I couldn't explain it, but something in the apartment had changed. Something cold had settled into the walls. By noon, I was still sitting at the table, trying to drink tea with trembling hands, when my phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something in me, dread or instinct, made me pick it up. Hello? A pause, then a voice I hadn't heard in years. Mia, it's Victor Green. I blinked. Victor, Courtney's lawyer? Yes. His voice was deeper now, slower, like time had weathered it. I know this is out of nowhere, but there's something you need to see, something your stepmother left behind. She instructed it be given to you only under specific circumstances. I stood up too fast. What kind of circumstances? He hesitated. Let's just say, she didn't believe death would be her end. Victor's office hadn't changed since the last time I was dragged there as a teenager to sign some agreement about school tuition and silence. Everything still smelled like cedar and ink and expensive regret. The wood-paneled walls were lined with books he didn't read. A grandfather clock ticked near the door with the smug rhythm of someone always on time. And in the middle of it all sat Victor, older, balder, but with the same tired eyes. He stood when I walked in. Mia, I look like her, don't I? He blinked. You always did. That answer sent a ripple of something dark down my spine. Victor gestured to the leather chair across from his. This will be strange, but not, I think, surprising. I sat. My hands were cold. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick, sealed envelope. It was yellowed at the edges, stamped with wax, and bore Courtney's initials in swirling script. She left this with me 20 years ago, he said. Said I was to give it to you only if she ever came back. I thought she was being dramatic, eccentric even. But this morning, he swallowed. This morning I had a dream. I saw her, standing in the corner of my bedroom, not older, not younger, just watching. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. He handed me the envelope. My name was on it, just Mia. In that handwriting I hated. Sharp, elegant, dismissive. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal. Inside was a single page, written in blue ink. If you're reading this, then I'm still here, not in flesh, but in fury. You always thought you won, didn't you? That I left and you got the house, the silence, the clean start. But I was never gone. We have unfinished business, and I intend to finish it. See, no apology. Just venom. I let the letter fall onto the desk and pressed my hands to my face, fighting back a scream. Victor said nothing. What could he say? She wrote this when? I asked finally. She came to see me after her daughter died, the biological one, you remember? I did, too well. Courtney's daughter from her first marriage. The golden child, the one she lost. And somehow, in the twisted math of grief, she decided I was to blame. She was obsessed with the idea of rebirth, Victor continued. Said pain never dies, that hate can carry. She called it anchoring. I laughed, a hollow sound. Well, I said, wiping my face, I guess she was right. Victor leaned forward, lowering his voice. Mia, do you believe she's really come back? I looked him straight in the eye. My baby whispered my name last night, I said. In her voice, in Courtney's voice, Victor went pale. And for the first time in over a decade, I saw fear in the eyes of the man who once stood beside her without question. The key Victor gave me was small and silver, taped to the inside of Courtney's letter like a quiet dare. I didn't recognize it at first, but when I saw the tag number, a chill ran through me. It belonged to a storage facility on the edge of town, the kind of place people used when they had things too painful to keep at home, but not painful enough to throw away. I didn't go that day. It took me 2 nights, 2 more stares from hope, 2 more dreams where I saw Courtney's shadow in the mirror instead of mine. When I finally pulled up to the facility, the air was heavy with damp and dust. Rows of metal doors lined the corridor, their locks rusted, their numbers flaking off like old paint. The concrete under my boots echoed my heartbeat, too fast, too loud. Unit 407. The lock clicked open too easily, like it had been waiting. The air inside smelled like old paper and forgotten years. I stepped in. There were boxes stacked haphazardly along the back wall, a yellowing armchair under a plastic tarp, and a single cardboard container marked in bold black ink, private. Do not destroy. I knew that handwriting. Courtney's, again, of course. Inside the box were 3 spiral-bound journals, 2 labeled cassette tapes, and a photo tucked between the pages like a pressed leaf. I lifted it out with trembling fingers. It was a picture of me, younger, maybe 10, and a girl beside me with golden hair and dimples. Courtney's daughter. Marissa, my half-sister, my shadow. The one she loved with a kind of obsessive force that left no room for anything or anyone else. We were smiling in the photo, matching dresses. Marissa had her arm around my shoulder like she didn't know we weren't really sisters. Or maybe she did and didn't care. Courtney had taken the photo. I remembered the flash, but not the warmth. Because right after that photo was taken, I remembered her snapping, "Stand up straight, Mia, you look like a stray." That was her version of love, measured in criticism and conditional approval. I slid down onto the tarp-covered chair and opened the first journal. The pages were full of tight, angular script, rage squeezed into every word. She doesn't even cry when I punish her, she just stares, like she knows she's winning. How can a child with no blood connection to me feel so entitled to my house? My time? My husband? Page after page, vitriol, paranoia, guilt twisted into resentment. And then I found the date. May 4th, the night Marissa died. She ran again. I told her no, but she always thought I was being cruel. I grounded her, took her phone. She said she hated me, and then she left. Mia found her, apparently. Tried to stop her. I don't know, I don't care. Now she's gone, and she, the ungrateful one, is still here. I froze. I had always known Marissa died in a car accident. I'd been told she snuck out after a fight and was hit by a truck on a rainy road. What I didn't know, what no one told me, was that I was the last person to see her alive. I had followed her down the driveway that night, barefoot and crying, trying to pull her back. I remembered yelling, grabbing her sleeve. I remembered her brushing me off. And then, nothing, just sirens. I had blocked it out, but Courtney hadn't. She remembered everything, and she blamed me, the favorite, the one who lived, the one who ruined everything. I don't know how long I sat there. The dust settled around me like falling snow, the silence thick as grief. The more I read, the clearer it became. Courtney hadn't just been cruel. She'd been broken, shattered by loss she couldn't accept, and she needed someone, me, to carry the guilt she refused to hold. And now, even after death, she couldn't let it go. She'd brought it back with her, into Hope, my daughter. I pressed my face into my hands and finally let myself sob. Not the sharp, quick tears of fear or exhaustion, but the low, aching kind, the grief you feel when you realize someone hated you not because you were wrong, but because you reminded them of everything they'd lost. Courtney never gave me a chance to be a child. But maybe now, just maybe, I could give Hope that chance. Even if it meant freeing her from the woman trapped inside her. That morning I sat on the couch with Hope in my arms, sunlight streaming in through the half-drawn blinds, dust motes dancing in the still air like lazy ghosts. Her tiny fingers curled around one of mine. I watched her, really watched, the way her eyes tracked the way my chest rose and fell, the way her lips parted just slightly, like she wanted to speak again but hadn't yet decided if I was worth the effort. So I spoke first. "If you're Courtney," I whispered, "why? If you really came back through her, why me? Why my baby? You hated me, you blamed me for Marissa. You never let me forget that I was the one who lived." Her expression didn't change, but something in her gaze softened, or maybe I imagined it. "Was it to punish me?" I asked, "or was it to stay close to the daughter you lost?" No answer, just her eyes, wide and unblinking. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she didn't look angry. She looked confused. I decided to leave the apartment, partly because I needed milk, mostly because I needed to breathe. Daniel met me in the parking lot of the local grocery store. He had offered to help me run errands, his way of being a friend, even though we both knew his concern ran deeper than friendship. He took the car seat from my hands and adjusted it in the cart. "You sure you're up for this?" "Not even a little," he smiled, honesty, refreshing. We walked inside together. The harsh white lights made everything look sterile, artificial, too bright, too clean. Hope didn't make a sound, until the checkout line. It was something small, a glance, a comment. A woman behind me, probably late 50s, thin-lipped and over-perfumed, leaned forward when she saw the dark circles under my eyes and the bottle of formula in my cart. "Oh," she said with that tone, "you're not breastfeeding?" I turned slowly. "Excuse me?" She gave a tight-lipped smile. "It's just, natural is always better, don't you think?" Daniel stiffened beside me. I opened my mouth, but before I could reply, Hope growled. Not cried, growled. It was low, guttural, almost animal. The woman flinched, and then Hope let out a sharp, high-pitched sound, something between a hiss and a cough, as if trying to ward her off. The woman backed away a step, clutching her purse. I stared down at my daughter. She stared right back. Protective, watchful. Daniel blinked. Did your baby just growl at that woman?" I didn't answer. The cashier finished ringing us up in awkward silence. Outside, the air felt heavier, like something had followed us. Daniel loaded the groceries into the trunk. Then, leaning against the car, he finally said it. "This isn't normal, I know. I'm a neurologist. I've worked with infants. I've studied early development. This," he glanced at Hope, "this isn't advanced. This is wrong. She's not just a baby," I whispered. "She's Courtney." He didn't laugh. He didn't scoff. He just looked at me with eyes that were too calm for disbelief. "You believe me," I said. "I don't know what I believe," he admitted. "But that, back there, that wasn't instinct. That was intention." Hope made a soft sound, like a hum. Her eyes were closed, but her lips twitched upward, almost a smirk. And for the first time in weeks I didn't feel afraid. I felt something else, something terrifying in its own way. Hope had protected me, not because she was a baby, not because she loved me, but because something inside her, someone, still believed I was worth defending. And maybe, just maybe, that meant there was still someone left inside her worth saving. That night, I dreamed in colors I don't remember ever seeing while awake. Not just red or blue, but shades of feeling. Despair that bled like ink, grief with edges, silence with teeth. And in the middle of it all, a room, empty, endless, paper white. A single chair sat beneath a hanging light bulb, flickering faintly like it was afraid to be seen. Courtney was in the chair, not baby-faced and innocent like Hope, But Courtney as I remembered her, severe, elegant, sharp around the edges. Her lips red as blood, her posture perfect, her eyes wrong. Wrong because they weren't filled with hatred. They were filled with something worse, defeat. She stared into a broken mirror hanging on the far wall. Jagged lines split her reflection into shards. "I didn't mean to stay," she said without turning. Her voice was raw, sanded down by time and regret. It didn't echo, it sank, like a stone tossed into a still lake. "You followed me," I whispered. Courtney laughed, short, bitter. "No, dear, you never left." She stood and walked to the mirror. Her hand hovered just above the fractured glass. "I didn't mean to come back this way," she murmured. "Not in flesh, not like this. But pain. Pain doesn't obey rules. It clings. It chooses." She turned to face me. Her eyes were hopes now, but not as sharp, not as sure. "I became the thing I hated," she said. "I couldn't carry the grief, so I let it carry me. I let it rot me until there was nothing left but the need to punish you." "For what?" I asked. "For living?" Courtney blinked. Then, softly, quietly, with no dramatics, she said, "Yes." And I believed her. I stood across from her, this ghost in my head, this wound in my bloodline, and for the first time, I didn't feel small. "I was a child," I said. "I didn't take her from you. I tried to save her." Courtney swallowed. A crack appeared in the mirror behind her, not in the reflection, but in the air itself. Like her admission had weakened the dream. "She ran," she said. "She ran because of me. You blamed me because you couldn't blame yourself." "I still can't," she whispered. "I don't know how." The chair behind her caught fire. No heat, just light. She didn't flinch. "I've been living inside that pain so long, I thought it was me. But holding your daughter's heart in my hands, feeling her laugh, feeling her want, I started to remember who I was before I broke." I stepped closer. "You don't have to keep going like this." Courtney shook her head. "I don't know how to stop," and I, finally, said it not as a victim, not as a daughter, not as the girl who spent years afraid of the woman in front of her, but as a mother. "You end it." By letting go, she met my gaze, and for the first time, she looked human. "You think I'm more than the pain I gave you?" she asked. I didn't hesitate. "No, I think you were, and hope still is." The light around her flickered, the cracks in the mirror widened, pieces of it began to fall, one by one, like old illusions breaking. Courtney looked at her hands. "She's still in there, isn't she?" "Yes, and if I leave, she'll be free, alone, innocent, reaching for something she didn't understand, reaching for me." I woke up with a jolt. Hope was asleep in the crib, peaceful, still. But her fist was curled around the edge of her blanket, tight, like she was holding on to something too big for her to name. I got out of bed and walked over, kneeling beside her. I didn't speak, I just placed my hand over hers, warm, real. And for the first time since she was born, I didn't feel Courtney, I felt my daughter, I felt hope. The room was quiet, wrapped in the soft hum of the night. Outside the window, the wind pressed gently against the glass, but inside, everything was still, except for the faint, steady rhythm of my daughter's breath. Hope was curled against my chest, her small body finally relaxed. Her weight felt heavier tonight, not in a burdensome way, but grounded, real, present. The light from the night lamp cast a golden halo over us. My arms ached from holding her, but I didn't want to put her down, not yet. I looked down at her. She didn't stir. Her eyelashes fluttered slightly as if she were dreaming something gentle. My voice broke the silence, low and raw. "I won't pretend that what you did didn't hurt me." Hope didn't move. "I won't say it didn't scar me, or that I've forgotten. I haven't. You left me with so much fear, so much anger. You haunted my childhood. And now, you came back through her." My arms tightened instinctively. "But this isn't about you anymore." I felt the tremor in my own chest before I said it. My voice cracked. "I'm not forgiving you to feel noble. I'm not doing it for closure or peace or to erase the past." I looked at her tiny hand resting over my heart. I'm forgiving you. For her. Tears slipped down my cheeks, silent, hot, unstoppable. For this little soul who never asked to carry your shadow. For the chance she has to live her own story. For the first chapter that can finally be hers, not yours, not mine, just hers. Hope stirred, but not with tension, no jerking muscles, no furrowed brow, no flicker of those piercing, all-knowing eyes. Just breath. Calm. Steady. She melted against me in a way she never had before. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes. Hours. Maybe lifetimes. Maybe it was the first time in my life I allowed myself to simply feel without bracing for what came next. Fear didn't live in my chest anymore. Neither did Courtney. Somewhere deep in the crib drawer, I had tucked away her final letter. I don't know why I hadn't read the back of the page sooner. Maybe part of me wasn't ready. But now, I was. I reached over one-handed and slid the envelope out, unfolding the note that had nearly torn me apart just days before. There was a final line written at the bottom. I must have missed it before. Simple, uneven, as if it had been written quickly, almost as an afterthought. You were stronger than me. I came back to understand how. I stared at the words until they blurred. Stronger? No. Just still standing. Just unwilling to let the pain define what came next. I laid Hope gently into her crib. She didn't wake. Her mouth made a small sucking motion, and her fingers uncurled slightly as her body shifted deeper into sleep. No voices echoed from her mind, no phantom anger passed through the air, only peace. I leaned down and kissed her forehead. Be free, I whispered. Just be you. As I stood and turned off the lamp, darkness swept over the room like a blanket. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of the dark. Spring had come early that year. The sun hung low in a sky so blue it looked freshly painted, and the breeze carried the scent of cut grass and lilacs. Tiny white blossoms drifted down from the old pear tree in our backyard, like soft snow that didn't sting when it touched your skin. Hope's laughter rang across the yard. Light, free, full of joy I once thought she might never know. She was running in uneven little zigzags, her curls bouncing wildly, her arms flailing as she chased a bubble that floated just out of reach. Don't let her run into the flower bed, I called out, shielding my eyes from the sun. Daniel chuckled beside me. Are you warning her or me? Both. He was lounging on the porch steps, holding a lemonade in one hand and a grin in the other. We had grown close again, slowly, in the quiet way things heal when no one's rushing the scars to fade. He wasn't just helping anymore, he was staying. Hope squealed as the bubble popped above her head. She spun around and saw me standing near the swing, arms open, and then she ran, full speed, wobbly and certain all at once, right into my legs. I caught her easily, her hands gripped my knees, her cheeks flushed pink, eyes sparkling like they were lit from the inside. And then, softly, like she'd been saving it just for now, she said, Mama. It was her first real word. I didn't cry. Not at first. I just froze, my breath catching, my chest pulling tight in the best way. She looked up at me like it was the most natural thing in the world, like she'd always known it, like it belonged to her and to me. Mama, she said again, surer this time. My throat clenched. I dropped to my knees, wrapped my arms around her, and let the tears come. Gentle, grateful, full of something deeper than relief. Daniel stood a few steps back, quiet, smiling. Hope laughed and hugged me tighter, burying her face into my neck. No shadows in her eyes, no tension in her little shoulders, no Courtney. Just Hope, my daughter, my light. Later, as we sat on a blanket beneath the pear tree, Hope asleep in my lap, I leaned my head on Daniel's shoulder. She's okay, I whispered. He nodded. She's more than okay. I looked down at her face, so soft in sleep, so full of life it made my heart ache. Courtney's gone, I said quietly. And my daughter stayed. I smiled through fresh tears. And that's all I need.